taxi driving is one of the lowest rungs on the economic ladder. Taxi drivers traditionally don't make an awful lot of money, and it's often a starting point in people's careers while they're trying to move up. I'm talking today, it's March 7th in Hamilton, Ontario at the Ontario NDP convention, and I'm talking today to Ray Dawson, who was a taxi driver in Sault Ste. Marie. Can you tell me a bit about your history of trying to get fair working conditions as a taxi driver in Sault Ste. Marie?
I can remember one hot summer day going back to the stand after having worked for 10 hours without any air conditioning, with a smoky car that was, the gas fumes were coming back into the car. And when I got back to the office, there were 3 other drivers talking to the owner of the company and complaining about their low pay levels. It became clear to me that the owner didn't care about the conditions under which we were working. I had made, in that 10 hours, I had made $37. And he didn't care.
You were an employee?
Well, one of the other drivers said, well, as employees, we are entitled to get the minimum wage. And the owner had replied, if the Ministry of Labor ever rules that you are an employee, I will lock the door. Well, that made me angry. And I decided that I was going to check it out. So I went to the Ministry of Labor and started checking out what our situation was. Because in the back of my mind, I kept thinking the Employment Standards Act should apply to us. If I was self-employed, I would have more control over how much money I was bringing in. Somehow. I wouldn't be working for $3.70 an hour. So I went to the Ministry of Labor, and they provided me with brochures that outlined some of the rights that I had as an employee. So I asked them, well, am I right in assuming that I'm an employee? The response was that they would have to make an individual case study of it, and they couldn't do that until I filed a complaint. So I took their brochures, and I went home and I studied them, and I went on the internet and I did some study there. I got a hold of the Freedom of Information people, and I made a request, and I found out that, lo and behold, in the last year or two, they had already found that same company 4 times in violation of the Act. They had found 4 times that the drivers there were employees, and it was still going on.
It must be very common.
It is. It happens all the time. Most taxi drivers, though they themselves don't realize it, because it's a deep, dark secret, and the ministry wants to keep it that way, that if you are to be a self-employed, you have to meet 4 criteria. And a major one of those is that you have to have some control over your income, your ability to make profit. If I had any control of how of making profit, I wouldn't be working for $37 for 10 hours. So obviously I had no control.
What was the next step?
I filed my complaint with the ministry. I was told I had to wait 3 months before an agent was assigned to the case. Immediately the company found out that I'd filed a complaint, I was fired. The owner didn't tell me I was fired. He just refused to provide me with a car. So I couldn't drive cab, obviously. I sent him a registered letter. He wouldn't even provide me with a record of employment. After 2 weeks, he still hadn't provided me with a record of employment. I had to go to the employment office and have them order him to give me an ROE. As a result of his position on that, the Ministry of Labour couldn't make a decision as to whether I had been fired or not until after 13 weeks were up. Because he was still saying he can come back, but he wouldn't provide me with a car. He never did provide me with a car. Even though I sent him a registered letter demanding that he give me a car so that I could drive. He kept on, whenever I would go to work, he wasn't available, he wouldn't return my calls, and the dispatch would just say, well, we don't, you're on the spare board.
And now you can't find work with any cab company, I understand.
I have, well, there's three cab companies in Sault Ste. Marie. I was fired from two of them now because, well, once I found, it became clear that he wasn't going to hire me back, I went to another company and got hired there. And because I insisted that that cab company had to pay myself and the others vacation pay and the minimum wage, he subsequently fired me as well. And I filed a complaint against him too. I won both complaints, but both companies are still not following the Employment Standards Act. The Ministry of Labour went in, did an investigation, ordered them to pay me, but didn't order them to stop what they were doing, didn't order them to pay all of the other drivers in their fleet, and it's continuing on.
And it's widespread, I guess. This kind of thing must be happening in cities across the province.
First of all, most taxi drivers aren't aware that they are covered by the Act. Secondly, when they go to the Ministry of Labour, the Ministry of Labour won't disclose to them that they might very well be covered by the Act, give them no encouragement, in fact, discourage them from filing a claim. When they do file a claim, the drivers get fired. The Ministry of Labour makes sure that these guys get a settlement, and it's business as usual. The company pays possibly $10,000 in fines and retroactive pay, but in the meantime, they've saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on all the other drivers in the industry. In Sault Ste. Marie, try and get one of the other taxi drivers to file a complaint. It won't happen. They saw what happened to me. The message was sent out loud and clear to the other drivers: shut up and drive your hack.
What can taxi drivers do, if anything? Have you heard of anything in the wind that might offer hope to taxi drivers? Are there attempts to organize them?
Yes, in Toronto, there's the steelworkers are trying to pull together an association of taxi drivers. There are associations of taxi drivers already in existence, and I've been in contact with them, talking to them, sharing ideas. There are taxi drivers that are unionized even in Oshawa, in Ottawa, and in Windsor. But even there is not any mechanism to make sure that the taxi drivers are in fact getting paid the minimum standards as laid out in the Act.
It really would take new legislation to protect those taxi drivers, wouldn't it?
That would be beautiful if we could do that, and that's something that's one of the reasons why I'm here today. I came down here today to talk to the NDP. I've been a member of the NDP for years, but I came down here specifically to talk to leadership candidates, and I've done that, and I've been getting fabulous support for the drivers of cabs throughout Ontario.